All right, how's it going, folks? We are back. We're in episode 9, where it's our last episode of our hero role discussions for Overwatch. And then next week, we're going to go ahead and be back with talking about the return of the beta. Everyone excited for the return of the beta?
Yeah, soon TM.
Yay!
It's like mid-February now,
Yeah, it's
right?
like mid-February now, but
Yeah,
with new modes,
Oh,
new maps, it's going to be fantastic. Everyone's excited. So, guys,
dude,
again,
new
I'm
maps.
as always, I'm Kid Liquid. We're here with Alex Invagination Orlando,
Hey.
Dylan Pepidus Hornenbrook, and then Joshua Piscator Lee. How's it going, guys? Everyone's excited for the beta. We have to wait a little longer than usual, or than we thought we did. But that gives us time to discuss these roles a little bit more. So today we're going over the support roles. So for anyone that doesn't know, the 4 support heroes, or listed support heroes we have, are Lucio, Mercy, Symmetra, Zenyatta, and also Mei. Right, so 5 support heroes.
May counts as a support.
No, May
Oh,
is defense.
oh, she's a defensive
defense.
hero. I apologize.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's a defensive hero.
I mean, I'll still talk about my Ice Princess if you want, really want to, because
Nah.
she is absolutely bae.
No, we've already talked over May, but we'll go ahead and we'll talk about these 4.
I'm sure you'll sneak in Diva
We'll
in
sneak in Diva. I
anyways,
didn't get
so
to
that
talk about
rule
Diva
does
last
not
week.
apply.
Oh my
I didn't get to
god.
talk about her last week. We'll
I
sneak
know.
it in there a little bit.
We
But
can all be at basketball games.
there it
so.
is.
Someone had to run the ship.
Yeah, great job to Alex running the ship yesterday or last week. Congratulations, Alex. But
Congratulations.
Congratulations!
She got a promotion. Hey!
I did something.
All right. So guys, what do we feel about the support role? How do these 4 heroes fit into the meta right now? Is there what's their really place in the meta?
I
mean,
think.
their place-
Yeah,
Go
go ahead,
ahead,
Dylan.
Joshua.
Actually,
Oh, okay. I mean, I have to say they're healthy. They're like tanks. You don't win a game without supports right now, especially with the 2 game modes we have currently between payload and point cap. It's very rare that you're going to see a point capped without a Lucio ultimate or a Mercy ultimate. And if you have tried to push a payload like ever without a support, you know it doesn't work. Since you get these small chunks taken out constantly. And if you don't have a Mercy or Lucio or a Zenyatta healing at least the tank, you don't go anywhere. You're just going to get worn down and eventually killed. And you just lose so much time. So supports have their niche. They're needed. I mean, anyone that's gone through a WoW raid, it's the exact same feeling pretty much. Except for I feel that these supports do a lot more than, your fantasy world RPG supports, which someone might be thinking of. Like, this isn't your white mage that's going to, heal you for 1,000, but then hit someone for 8. Each of these supports has some interesting playstyle that can lead to damage. But the main thing that they are known for and needed for is the healing.
Sure. Honestly, I think building off of what Dylan was saying there, personally, I feel like these are these 4 of the most kind of swingy heroes in Overwatch. I think that they're most important. Like, a lot of times you build your Overwatch comps around what supports you have. They all have sort of unique abilities that help different heroes in different ways. And so, like, if you can build an entire team around a Lucio, and your Lucio is a very good Lucio and he knows how to play that hero, like, you can completely wreck a game with someone with a support at the center of your comp. At least in my opinion.
no, I completely agree with that sentiment. That the word "swingy" that you used, I think, is just so perfect because how many times have we been in a really close clutch situation on, like, say, the second point of Hanamura? Everybody goes down, and all of a sudden you have your godlike Mercy just
Oh, dude.
hit the ult button. Everybody comes back up. Lucio's ult also incredibly game changing. The fact that you essentially get, what is it, like a 400 health shield just
Yeah.
immediately, and all of a
500!
500,
really?
like, it's huge. And Symmetra, I feel like it's not the most noticeable in, like, the middle of a fight, but then again, it's one
It
of
is
those
the-
things that I feel like the enemy team doesn't notice until they notice it. It's like, shit, I feel like we've killed these guys 20. Do they have a teleporter? And then you finally realize that, and by the time you realize it, it's just too late for you. So one good, like, support can just completely swing the tide of a match and just really snowball things so quickly.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Alex, what do you think?
I'm always support because I'm always forced to be support. So this was definitely when I had time with the beta. Obviously, that doesn't work in League of Legends either because it just never ends for me. But with support, I think that it's really sad that a lot of people don't gravitate towards it. At least in my experience with the beta, it was always the one that was open. But at the end, and it's always the thankless position, right? Like people don't always pick up on like what you're doing behind the scenes, whether it be like you're healing them or like the teleport, for example. But I think that it's a really diverse group of supports, so it's not just you don't have just like pure healers, which I know a lot of games are trying to avoid nowadays because it's so stigmatized. You know, the healer is like the girlfriend class or whatever, which is really stupid. You know, it's stupid and dumb. It's like, oh, like I want to be like in TF2, that was a problem, I think, is like the medic was like the girlfriend class and the boyfriend was always like the heavy, and you just got to hang back and just like heal. So it was a very low like skill cap required for medic, but I mean, people can do some crazy shit with the medic too. So I'm glad that Overwatch is kind of pushing that forward, and maybe as people get to play around a little bit more, especially like Symmetra, I think people needed more time with her to be able to really use her to her full advantage. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And it was
Hand-up.
highest win rate Symmetra. If you remember the statistics they put out
Right,
from the
as of
beta
BlizzCon.
From
weekend.
the opening for the open beta weekend, right?
Yeah, from the open
was-
beta.
It was as of BlizzCon, I remember that. Was it after open beta as well? Because I remember
Yeah.
at BlizzCon, they told us Symmetra had the highest win rate.
Yeah, Symmetra
Yeah, it
still
was-
kept the highest win rate throughout the
Oh, wow.
open beta.
Okay.
Or at least that beta weekend they did.
Right.
Looking at the chat really
But-
quick too to bring up a good point. Lumbear Jack from the chat here, like he says a support in MOBA is a playmaker, and with a support in this game, you can make a game changing decision. Like I think that's
Oh, totally.
honestly the
Oh, yeah.
There's very few like supports in MOBAs that can fully kind of turn a game around. I mean, there's moments that can happen, but yeah, I think like I was saying, you can build a comp around a support, which you can't really claim to do in other games, which I think makes this kind of class really unique. That's why I kind of wanted to save it for last as well. I think they honestly, in my opinion, I think they have the biggest impact on whatever comp you're doing.
Well, and I mean, we can see in the pro scene that the pros are very pro support. Most team comps actually feature 2 supports per team. So essentially, a third of most of these pro team compositions are supports. And considering that we're talking a class list of 4 different heroes, that means that each of them are so integral to what could be a growing pro meta. Not necessarily your pub meta, but a growing pro meta is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive. So guys, let's just jump into it. I guess we'll start with Zenyatta, probably one of like the lower tier ones. I guess if I honestly I don't think any of these are lower tier, but I guess Zenyatta.
I think Zenyatta is the support you want to do. Just like if you got stuck playing support and you want to just do tons of damage, Zenyatta is the one that you pick. Zenyatta is incredible at shredding frontline with her Orb of Discord.
Yeah.
The fact that if you land one and you land a burst of your auto attack on her is just you're immediately going to take down everybody, especially if you crit them. Zenyatta, but then again, I also feel like her ult is probably not the most straightforward to use in fights. Lucio, it's really obvious. Before you take a bunch of bursts, you throw it down. Symmetra, you just put it in a safe place. Mercy, when everybody's dead, you just hit the Z button. But Zenyatta's a little bit trickier in that you get that AoE heal that keeps everybody going for a little bit longer, so you kind of need a more specific comp to take advantage of that. But Zenyatta, given the fact that a lot of her abilities are based on like accuracy and just proper timing, considering that you're pretty squishy, has a very high skill floor and an incredibly high skill ceiling as well, because she's hard to play decently. But people who are good at Zenyatta, I am terrified of good Zenyatta players over any good like Roadhog, for sure any good Diva players out there. I don't care how good you are at Diva. Like a good Zenyatta is just gonna freaking Shrek you every single time. Zenyatta is terrifying.
Okay, I'll take that as a challenge.
It's not a challenge. It's just true, Chris.
Well, I was reminding off air that Zenyatta, and it's a he. We had this like big discussion before, but of course it sounds like a female name, so like, cause whatever.
I just think Oriana.
Or yeah, like Like it is when we first started and we asked like maybe what our favorite and least favorite characters were, Zenyatta was like most commonly the least favorite character. Like I wonder if now that we've had more time talking about each individual character, we still think that way. That might be like a question to like the larger audience as well, but I still feel like character wise, I think like personality wise, I think sets the bar a little bit lower. Just to talk about something besides mechanics, because we're seeing all these characters like the Pixar style personality. I don't think it comes quite across with Zenyatta.
No, but I think the
Zenyatta.
design is
It
very
says
cool.
Pixar
I
like
think.
Reaper.
But I mean, he's a stoic monk. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like going up to the Dalai Lama and saying, "Yo, DL, you need to be a little bit more animated with the folks. Look at the Pope. The Pope's
Hey, my
doing
man,
some
let's get lit."
crazy." Yeah. So
But
like,
for a
come on,
video
be
game,
more
you
like
know,
the Pope.
like, do we need any more stoic monks? It's like, do we need any more like Reinhardts? Do we need more knights?
No,
I
but
don't know.
think-
It's
I
just
think,
kind of
like-
you're not going to get a character that people are going to be attached to with that.
No, but I think like
kind
the
of
floating element, like the mystical kind of element he brings, is really interesting, kind of cool looking.
And I mean, it's unfortunate that he and Bastion kind of have the same, a similar backstory where they're Omnics after the Omnic Revolution. So going into this world, they're not like widely loved. Although it's weird, Zenyatta comes from this like special sect that people actually respect. So he comes from this like Tibetan monastery where everyone's like, "Oh, those are the good robots. Those are the like famous peacekeeping robots." And Zenyatta's like, "Screw you, peacekeeping robots. I'm going to roam around and actually help people instead of preach words at them." And that is like, that is Zenyatta's backstory. Is he's the monk that was like, "Nah, screw this. I'm going to help people. You guys can go meditate."
That is not what I think of at all when I see Zenyatta in game. Because, like, y'all can go meditate. Then again, no, that's true. No, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, he's the one that wants to go out and fuck shit up, right?
Yeah,
But
I mean,
would
out of
it
all
be
the supports,
better?
he's the-
Yeah,
It
he's
would
the,
be
like, get in your
slightly
face and I'm going
better.
to slap you with my balls. That sounded so weird, but it makes sense if you know exactly how Zenyatta is. I did not intend for that to happen, but that is exactly what you do as Zenyatta.
Smack you with
come
your
out and you
orbs.
just slap people with your orbs, your big purple orbs, and then everybody just bows down to you immediately. You just, he's so strong.
Yeah.
I have to say though, I think they could up the ante a little bit if they made Zenyatta more of like a drunken master type character, only like a drunk. Just add a drunk element. and I
drunken
think we
robot?
have something. But like
Hey.
it would,
Bender
he
from
drunk
Futurama.
on?
but it would have to be like PG-13. So I think alcohol is still allowed, right? Is that the
So
rating
Bender.
of the game?
Give me a misfunction. Give
It's
me a
a T,
malfunctioning
right?
Actually,
robot.
that's drug and
Or is it an
alcohol
M rating?
use.
You just add
it
it in
verges
a
on
little
that.
bit.
Verges
Yeah.
on
That's
that.
teen, it's fine.
I mean, you're killing. It's okay if you get a little drunk on the side, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, so let's try to dig ourselves out of the rabbit hole here. Let's
Okay.
let's go back and so yeah.
Leave me behind in the rabbit hole.
We'll just leave Alex in the
Continue.
rabbit hole talking about
drunk
her
as hell
drunken
down there.
masters and yada. But so yeah, for Zenyatta, would you guys say that it's like I think Josh brought it up to begin with? It's the support that you play when you're not used to playing support, right? It's the kind
Okay.
of entry level support. Is that what we're going with here? Because dude, all of these supports are actually kind of complicated to have really complicated dimensions to them.
I think I want to clarify and say he's the support that you play when you don't really play support, but you're forced into the role and you want to play a damage dealer.
Yeah.
Like Zenyatta,
and you wanna
by
have fun.
far not the entry level support at all. I say that Zenyatta is the hardest support to be good at, to be like reasonably effective at, because the way you have to position yourself. But
Sure.
it's the support you play when you want to just fuck everybody up.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I actually want to build off of Josh's point of when you want to fuck people up, here's why you pick up Zenyatta. So I did a little bit of number crunching, and with his Orb of Discord on someone, his DPS turns to 200 DPS. That's not
What?
headshots. That is just his base damage on a target with his Orb of Discord. From just Zenyatta, that is 202 DPS. Now, in case you're
One shot.
wondering where that stacks up, here are three other characters. Soldier 76. I was about to say Soldier 69, which would have been a much different soldier.
Oh.
Hey.
Slap him with some balls, hey.
Hey.
Anyway.
All right. Soldier 76 actually does 170 DPS from his rifle. You can technically bump that up to 290 if you do Helix rockets at the same time. But as far as main weapon damage, only 170. Tracer comes in at 160. And then here's Chris's favorite, Diva at max pellet. So close range, no bullet drop off, can only pump out 168 DPS.
Trash.
So think about
well,
that.
she is a tank, though. Like,
Yeah, she's a
Yeah,
tank.
but
That's
I
a
mean,
lot of
I-
damage
we're
for a
not
tank.
healing with damage here, folks.
Yeah, but let's also point out the fact that all of those characters have actually no, except for Tracer. Tracer gets 1 ult charge per 9 damage. Zenyatta gets it for 13.3 damage. So when he's pumping out that 202 damage per second, he is actually charging his ult at a rate of 15% per second. Yeah, that's kind of nuts, ain't it?
Yeah.
And then you're throwing on
No,
the fact
like,
that
ball
he's got
joke intended.
no,
Kind of nuts.
completely intended. All balls, orbs, and nuts are in play here, folks. So then we talk about his Orb of Harmony, which on the side, just completely,
I literally
doing
forgot
its
about
own
that
thing
one.
on somebody, heals for 25 health per second, which roughly translates to 1% ult charge per second. So if his orb is off healing someone like on full-time duty, like your tank's just using it as like a relief band-aid at all times, and you're pumping out DPS, you could easily be charging up an ult like every 10 seconds in an ideal situation. Like in a vacuum, he has one of the quickest ult charge times possible.
So a lot of potential there that we're not actually discovering.
Right, and as we're going to talk about with all supports is the ultimate. So
Sure.
for those of you that have not spent a lot of time with Zenyatta or have not seen Zenyatta played, his ultimate is very similar to Azania's Hourglass in League of Legends, where he goes full on stasis. So no damage can affect him, no CC can happen, and he essentially turns into a font of healing, where everyone in a circular radius around him heals for 100 health per second. Now, that might seem, number in a vacuum, doesn't seem like a lot, but Lucio with E heals at 40 health per second, and Mercy with her concentrated beam is only 50 health per second. So this is actually the strongest heal in the game, and I believe the duration on it is 6 seconds. So you're talking about a net gain of 600 health to everyone around him while he is not being able to be shut down. So this isn't a support that you can just pick off at that time and stop the healing. He is literally just there, making sure that everyone around him does not go down, like just pure immortal.
Sure. And I think, like, even how much damage does something like AoE do? Dylan, do you have that off the top of your head? So something like a Diva ulti or like a
Well,
like,
Diva.
no,
So
like a Diva ulti or
if
like
I'm
a high noon
Diva
or anything like
ulti
that.
is so high noon and Diva ulti. So let me go with Diva ulti because I know that number off the top of my head.
Sure.
Diva ulti
As
is
you should.
it's a radius damage. Center of it's actually 1,000 damage. So you're talking the actual weakness of Zenyatta ulti versus say a Lucio ulti, which is Lucio's ulti is immediate like health generation where he even overheals people to 500. This is literally just helping them to their max health like a heal. Heals cannot overcharge. So he is giving everyone 100 health per second if they didn't have it originally. Now, if you're taking large burst damage, like, say, Junkrat Ultimate or a Diva Ultimate, it's not going to save you. I think Junkrat's is 600 damage with close proximity to his tire, Diva being 1,000. So those could still disrupt the team and kill them inside of a Zenyatta Ultimate. But if we're talking non-ultimate damage, I mean, I just laid out Tracer and Diva DPS to you at 170 and 168. Your ability to take a champion down is severely hindered when
half.
Zenyatta Ultimate is running.
Yeah, over half. So I mean, like that's what I was kind of getting at, where the weakness of Zenyatta ulti is just because you have to sit within that fountain around him. So I mean, it does kind of congregate you all into a place for some kind of AOE or massive damage. But I mean, overall, yeah, there's so many kind of positives for Zenyatta. But I mean, yeah, I think,
And he still comes like here's the crazy thing is he does all of this good stuff, and yet I would still rank him last in the
Yeah.
support class.
that's what I
As
was
far
gonna
as
get at.
like usability.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? A champion I just rattled off some pretty impressive statistics.
Yeah.
Now, let's obviously talk with supports. There's a big elephant in the room as far as their survivability. This is the necessity. These characters are so strong and they're so useful that the trade-off is they are all made of paper. Like, none of these guys you sit there and think, oh, God, he's really durable. Maybe Lucio, you could make the argument, is durable.
I
But
wouldn't even
Zenyatta,
say that. Honestly, I would just say because he has a heal and he has so much movement ability that he can
He's
kind
just
of just
the
dodge
easiest
out.
to survive.
yeah, his self-heal, I think, makes him durable.
Sure.
It's not like he has high health.
No.
He's just really... So here's the thing. Zenyatta, 150 health. Ties Tracer for the least amount of health in the game. Difference between him and Tracer, 100 of his health is regenerative shield health or regenerative... Yeah, I think it's shield health.
It's shield.
Yeah. So regenerative shield health, so that's 100. That means that health will always heal up after 3 seconds of not taking damage. But that leaves him at 50 normal health. But if you dip into that pool well of that 50 normal health, he has no way to get that health back. Whereas every other support on our list can... No, actually, he and Symmetra cannot return to full if they lose any of their normal health. But the shield will always eat first.
Dylan, did you just want to let the chat know where you're getting that data from? Is that your own number crunching or is that Oversheet?
It is Oversheet. If you are ever looking for numbers on Overwatch, by all means, Google Oversheet. It's out there. It's been community made. Is there a specific author we need to... Is there an author
I'm not
that we know
entirely
of?
sure if anything's on Oversheet about the author on there. Oh,
If
here
we
it is.
can
If
find
there-
it,
Here,
we'll,
I got it right here. It is the Reddit user Blowblack 323. Blowblack 323.
Okay, whoever he is, he's doing the God's work, or the Lord's work, whatever you want to say with it. Literally
Zenyatta's
everything
work.
you want to know. Yeah, the Zenyatta's work even. He's literally just out there putting together every crazy number you want. So when I'm going through trying to make these numbers, that is my sole reference point. It's actually just a fantastic resource. Like everything from healing to ult charge timers to DPS. He does everything. He even considers fall off point damage, which is like really, there are some crazy things to try and track with the DPS on this, and he's done a really good job.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I think that's what's cool kind of about the shooter genre as a whole. Is just like there's so many different statistics to consider that most people don't, and the shooter community has been so great about doing that for all kinds of different games.
Yep.
But Alex, what do you think of Zenyatta overall? Other than that, you think he should be a drunk monk?
Yeah, I think the drunken element would help for sure. Absolutely. The problem is that I have to admit I didn't really play a lot of Zenyatta because if I was going support, I would pick anybody else.
Sure.
So I don't have to say, I can't say much technically. And again, didn't see a lot of Zenyatas on either side of the team. So in my experience, it's very limited as far as Zenyatta in particular.
Sure.
But yeah, drunk.
Just a
League of
quick correction really quick. It's someone in chat is saying Sprite Guy was the compiler of the data for Overcheat.
Okay.
So shout out there. But yeah, I think that kind of gets to the next point of we're saying so many good things about Zenyatta, but honestly, we're talking about we're starting at the low end of what a support can do here. Which is nuts.
50% damage amp.
Yeah.
Low end.
So I mean, let's
Low
go
end.
let's go up to Symmetra. Let's move up the rails a little bit. What's up with Symmetra other than she'll walk into a room and die instantaneously? Like what's up with Symmetra, guys?
She's almost a necessity on certain maps. Because
Agreed.
especially when you're playing on offense, and what was the one where you open up and there's like 2 levels and there's like the room right in front of you, and there's like the room where everybody sets up all the Symmetra turrets right up front. Anyway, there are certain maps on Payload or any sort of like
talking about
maps that we've seen
Gibraltar?
Yeah, Gibraltar.
Yeah, Gibraltar. There we go.
Yeah, there are certain situations where when you're playing on offense and you don't have a Symmetra, you are never going to get to that first checkpoint, or you're just never going to win because offense is pretty it's pretty screwed in a lot of these situations because it's so hard to regain map presence if the defense is able to get a stable situation. So as a Symmetra, like there's a lot of times where I'll start off a game as a Symmetra, give everybody a shield, and just try to ult farm as hard as I can. And then once you get that turret, you plop it down, and then your team can just start going like super, super hard. Because a lot of times on offense, if you don't get past the defense within 1 or 2 pushes and you let them stack up their ultimates, it's like you're just not going to win. And Symmetra becomes a near necessity in certain situations.
Sure. I think honestly too, for me, her ultimate is the most game-changing thing. Like it can be the most game-changing thing, especially with like we did that episode on map design and how like Overwatch's big flaw right now is like how terrible its map design is, especially in terms of its respawn distances and like sort of their respawn locations. And like Symmetra just completely changes the game on that. If depending on how long you can keep that teleporter up, like it's absolutely ridiculous. It can completely change a game around.
Like I would love to see a statistic on point A holds with and without Symmetra, because I guarantee you that Symmetra at least like doubles the percent of the time that you're able to hold point A. Like it's a Herculean task to hold point A without a Symmetra. Making sure that, and because then every death you have is so much more punished without that teleporter. Because once that teleporter hits the field, you're essentially nullifying, I'd almost say like half of the amount of time of a death penalty. Because you still have that penalty, you have to wait to respawn, and that sucks. But it's almost like doubled when you actually have to run back and get to your point. So the fact that she halves your death penalty and makes it so you can go out and freely trade, like you can have a war of attrition. You can go 1 for 1, like kill for kill on a character, and your team is going to just suffer so much less for it.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say I think we talked about it too on the episode we did again on the map discussion, where the respawn timer actually isn't that long. It's actually only a couple seconds. When walking from your respawn to point A literally takes forever, or it seems like it takes forever.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it's even more than half. If we're talking about a good Symmetra teleport placement, like it is more than half of the penalty.
Right. It's the entire point about trading damage and trading kills.
Yeah. Then
it's just so much more worth it to you.
Yeah. It makes your game so much easier. Alex, what do you think of Symmetra?
So Symmetra is probably the hero. It's hero, right? I keep saying champion.
Hero.
We
all say champion in our head.
We're all league scrubs.
Yeah. She's probably the hero I've played the second most, or maybe even the most.
Wow.
Yeah, because if I didn't get Diva, she would be like my next pick. Usually.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
And because, well,
one tricks all over the place. My goodness.
Man, I play what I like. I like what I see.
I can't wait till this beta comes back, by the way. I'm just going to demolish Chris on Diva every single time.
I'm just going to pick it every time. I'm going to spam taunts in front of you.
Wait. Wasn't there someone that said, like, he hadn't died or had never been... No, someone had never died to Hanzo ulti. Who was it? We have to make sure that, like...
Bizzle never died to Hanzo ulti.
There is an open bounty. If you find Bizzle, literally load up 6 Hanzos. We don't care. We'll find some way to reward you for killing him with Hanzo ulti, but we will need proof. And hopefully, like, montage proof where you kill him, like, 8 times.
Yeah, that has to be a thing. Can we have an Overwatch community? Can Overwatch community or the Overtalk community go ahead and band together to just kill Bizzle with Hanzo ulti every single time? Like 5 Hanzos, just like all at once. Be fantastic. Please go ahead and do that.
Yeah, please do it. Please send us the videos. We'll find a way to help you out if you do this for us.
You will realize how broken that ultimate is. Like just immediately. Yeah. Like, this is stupid.
Sure.
I can't do it.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway.
I derailed Alex here. So let's
That's okay.
let her get back
That's
to her
okay.
point.
It was a good derailing. So yeah, it's definitely one of the heroes I have the most experience with, and I think I like picking especially supports to get like a lay of the land when I first start playing a game because I don't want to be expected to like start killing if I don't know what the hell's going on. So I really like Symmetra for getting a lay of the maps. And while I may not have initially placed my turrets or my teleporters effectively, I found I learned pretty damn quickly about what worked. So I highly recommend maybe not necessarily Symmetra, but like a support if you're just starting out with the game. I think she's really cool looking. Again, I said before, I like that she's actually dark skinned. I like that she's very deceptive as far as her damage. So not just with the turrets, but
yeah.
I've killed so many people with her gun only because people aren't paying attention to me. And you can use those turrets to distract. Well, not only do people not go for you because you're a support, but even if they do, they're going after your turrets, and you can just slowly sneak away. And I think so many people don't even realize they're getting hit by your gun. And so I found it to be really effective to not only trick people to going into a room, but then just sticking around and killing them after worked really well as well. Now, I don't know if people are going to eventually catch on, or maybe Symmetra is going to get nerfed because she has such a high win rate. But right now, I think that it's so satisfying to just like zap people to death in various ways. It's really fun.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point of, and I know I've been kind of guilty of this, just kind of ignoring her when you're trying to clear her turrets. Just so you think, okay, I can clear the turrets and then kill her, and you're not really entirely clear of where the damage is coming from. When you realize you're being shot in the back by her, and that's doing most of the damage. But yeah, Dylan, what do you think?
Okay, so
What do you got for me?
I really like Symmetra. Actually, when I saw Melty, which is probably like the best pro team before the beta went down, they actually had started using her on King's Row, and they actually, despite what I said, they used her point A or post point A, which is something I never do. If I'm playing Symmetra and we lose point A, I switch off and automatically go to Mercy or Lucio. I just find them more useful personally. But they actually really changed my mindset about how I would deal with Symmetra and payload situations during that mid game, because there is a point to actually being in the middle of the map on payload, whereas when you're playing point defense, you don't really have a huge incentive to be out in the middle between point A and point B. In fact, I would say it's inherently more dangerous and less useful. But it was very interesting. So I think she's where there's going to be a lot of growth and experimentation as far as high-level meta. But I think there are some amazing things to consider about Symmetra. First off, her E, which we don't talk about a lot, gives a regenerative shield to every other member of the team. So you effectively just gave 50 health that regenerates automatically to every member of your team, as long as you're good about using it. Unfortunately, that regeneration doesn't do any ult charge for her. So unlike every other support we talk about, her ult has to be charged with damage that she or her turret does. There's no heal, there's no real passive way for her to get ult charges outside of being really smart about turret placement and using her own weapon. Now, let's talk about turrets. She gets 6 turrets. They're these little laser pointers that she put up on the wall. So they look like these little orbs, and they hit people. But on top of actually doing damage, they do 25 DPS per second, unlimited ammo, so they don't stop. It's not like a... Actually, no, I don't think a Torbjorn turret stops, but Bastion does have to. They do continuous damage, and they do slow, stacking slow. So when you get hit by like 3 or 4 of them, you really start to feel your movement impair. So let's say, once again, I'm going to go into the max ideal situation here. You somehow get 6 turrets to hit someone. You're doing 150 DPS. Like, you walk into a room and that starts hitting you, you feel it. And there's a good chance if you don't recognize it immediately, you will, because you're not moving anywhere since you're like slowed to heck. But it can do some pretty significant damage if left alone. But to Alex's point, where a lot of people, I feel, because I played a good amount of Symmetra, I feel a lot of people ignore this. Here is the damage from her actual gun. So for the first second you do damage to someone, it does 30 damage per second. By the second, because her damage ramps up the longer your laser stays on someone, it's a continuous damage, and it's an auto follow. So as long as your cursor is like on them or even around them, it'll automatically link to them. So maybe it's really good if you have a hard time tracking super mobile heroes like, say, a Tracer or a Reaper who's floating around you. So it can really, it's kind of a high skill floor type of attack where you're not going to be super punished for maybe lack of reflexes. So after the first second, it goes from 30 DPS to 60 DPS. And then at the third second, it hits its cap at 120 DPS. Continuous, no aim. That's some pretty crazy damage if you actually add in the fact that her turrets could also be doing damage at the same point. So ideal situation, you have turrets doing 150 DPS and a gun that could stack to 120 for an ideal max DPS of about 270.
Yeah. And I think the big key with Symmetra is kind of knowing where to place those turrets and knowing what's the most ideal sort of situation to place yourself in. To be able to get to that max DPS, right? Because like you're talking about ideals, but I mean, when are you really going to get that situation?
It's pretty rare.
Yeah,
but she also has a very niche type of DPS. So her damage actually goes straight through shields. So things like Winston Bubble and Reinhardt's shield do not matter to her, and this is especially useful when you have a Bastion set up with his shield in a backline. If you charge her shot, it does 125 DPS at max charge. So if you hold her laser down, actually no, I think it's a different click. Is it
right click?
Right click.
Yeah, if you right click on it, charge, it'll shoot out a ball. It's slow moving, but it goes straight through shields for 125 damage. Now that can be really good if there is a pesky Bastion sitting in the backline. You can really punish them for sitting back and just trying to shield, as opposed to coming out and trying to get you.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of two abilities that can do that. The other one is Reinhardt's Flame Strike.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are the only two, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And you're pretty much in a race to do 1,000 DPS as Symmetra. She gains her ultimate stacks at 10 DPS per 1%. So if you just mentally think, okay, I send that bubble and it goes through two people, that max rank little bubble of damage right there, you've actually done a quarter of her ultimate.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it stacks really fast. Assuming you can
I know.
It's not hard to hit those right-click shots either, because you can just spam them over and over again, and they're an incredible sieging and zoning tool. Yeah, people can't go into a corner; they'll just die.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, once again, I think my main thing here is, although Lucio and Mercy are really heavily favored due to the fact that they actively heal your team, there are a lot of pros to at least trying Symmetra and Zenyatta that a lot of people don't realize because they're not really willing to look at the circumstances that surround those characters, but they can be extraordinarily strong if put into the right composition.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think, yeah. What do we have did we pull up a weakness yet for anything Zenyatta does? I think it's just placement, right? It's just understanding.
Mobility.
Yeah.
Mobility. Both Zenyatta and Symmetra. That's if they had any way to be mobile in their just basic movements, they would be ridiculous. Sure. In my mind, that's one of the things that really pushes both Mercy and Lucio to that next tier.
Yeah.
Is the fact that they have that either movement speed augmentation or flight, or even the much less used but still really awesome Lucio wall ride. If you've go check out the YouTube videos of people using Lucio's wall ride, and you realize you can do some pretty insane stuff.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you can get some places you never knew.
Yeah, I feel the same way when you use like Hanzo or Genji or anything like that. Like anything with a wall ride, it's such a cool kind of mechanic. And just to kind of go off on that really quick, like most FPS players are trained to sort of walk or sort of move around at with headshot kind of leveling.
Mhm.
And like as soon as you come through a door on a wall and you like completely mess up their targeting or just something they're not used to, it completely messes them up. And it's just very kind of interesting to see that kind of mechanic come out. But yeah, I guess that's it for Symmetra. And we'll kind of we'll leave the elephant in the room for later. But we'll go on Lucio since we're on the wall riding topic. What do we think about Lucio? Other than his music is dope.
I love
Yeah.
playing, like, thematically, he's like an incredibly fun character to play. In terms of gameplay itself, Lucio's
Way
somebody.
more fun than Zenyatta.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I was trying to find some but I think he's just.
That's the
so much more
comparison
fun.
right there, right? Lucio's like way up here, like energy. Not even he doesn't even have to be drunk, whatever. And then like Zenyatta's all the way down here, and you're like, well, who are you gonna pick? This cool like, you know, Jet Set Radio party guy, or are you gonna pick like boring monk? Like, come on.
Exactly.
Anyways, you continue. I have lots to say about Lucio.
Oh,
I like
boy.
Lucio because number one, he's incredibly mobile, especially with his boosted speed, and the fact that he can, freaking run along walls, Matrix style. He does a ton of damage. Like, it's really surprising. A lot of times we've like peeked around a corner, you get chunked for half of your health. You're like, shit, what was that? And it was just a Lucio doing burst fire over and over again. So his siege is actually like incredible, but his ult and his sustain through team fights is what really makes this guy like incredible. He kind of gets like that mini Zenyatta ult every once in a while if you boost his heal in the middle of fights. I'm sure Dylan has the numbers on that or a ballpark. But it's
I do have the numbers on that.
Exactly. But it's the ultimate that I think is just incredibly team fight changing, especially when you're all jumping on a payload or a contested objective at the same time. As soon as you drop, I just call it dubstep because it's like the easiest thing to call it. As soon as you drop that dubstep and you get that 500 health shield, you're immediately soaking most of the types of bursts that are available to you in this game. And when all of a sudden guys like Reaper, Pharah can't just one-shot you, it just negates so much of their usefulness. So Lucio's probably, in terms of solo play, probably top like number one support in solo play, I would say.
I would agree with that. Mercy, I think, requires a little more coordination.
She's harder to like hard carry on, but
Yeah.
Lucio's like somebody you can like hard carry on.
Yeah, I completely agree. But yeah, I think the thing with Lucio too is, so Dylan will probably have some more info on it, but he has 200 health, and no shields. So like we talked about earlier, Symmetra had 100 shield and Zenyatta also had 100 shield. And so like those automatically come back over the 3-second period, like Dylan was saying before. But Lucio doesn't have that. He has 200 just flat health. But he does have the ability to regenerate himself. And honestly, like sometimes that regeneration, when he's switching between those two songs, between movement speed and regenerating health, like it can completely turn around a 1v1. You can 1v1 a ton of people as Lucio. It kind of surprises
It's
people,
so
catches them off
clutch.
guard. Yeah.
Well, and the fact that during the heal, he's still allowed to output the damage. His healing has no bearing on his DPS output. Like, he's literally just allowed to sit there and heal while he continues to shoot you in the face.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if you really need to get away, say you get chunked really, really low by a Reaper or a McCree who happens to sneak up on you, you can boost heal yourself, and you have that self-heal ability with your right-click auto. It just blasts people away from you in a small zone. You boost your self-heal for the extra health. You blast somebody away, then you move speed, zoom, you're gone. Nobody can catch you. He is so incredibly slippery, and you pretty much need to like one-shot him or just like hard CC lock him, which isn't super common in this game to begin with.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing that... Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Oh, that's all right. I think Lucio is really good for bringing the team together. So, like, I find that a big symptom of people, like, especially in an early stages of a game, they're kind of off doing their own thing. Especially, like, the offense heroes. They're just kind of, like, running around trying to get kills and whatever. But I think as soon as people see a Lucio, then they kind of gather towards him because, like, obviously they're going to reap the benefits.
Power of music.
You know, it's like...
Give me
Yeah,
that
the power of
heal.
that is literally his backstory. He wants to save the world with his music. And so he brings people together, which I think is really, really important in a game where it doesn't necessarily have the best communication built in if you're not using a mic. So, these kind of like nonverbal in-game mechanics that are able to kind of direct people, and a good Lucio, I think, will do that. It's kind of unfortunate if you do run into a situation where you can't find anybody and like they're off in the corridors or like people are going one way and people are going the other, which has happened to me so many times where I'm like, I'll help you, I guess. And then you're just in a horrible situation that like you just die immediately because they don't give a shit about you. And like, so it's like, hopefully people start picking up on this a little better as the game develops.
Sure. Dylan,
I just wanted to add that in as we were talking about.
No, yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think like that kind of brings into the factor of that Josh was bringing up, that he can solo carry a game a little harder than Mercy can, even though like I think we're going to talk about it, I think Mercy's still the top line support in this game.
Yeah.
But Dylan, what do you got?
So let's talk about the thing that makes Lucio so amazing. Between Zenyatta and Mercy, what you see is single target healing. What Lucio brings to the game that makes him so unique and so strong is the fact that he has AoE healing, and actually not to a bad tick. So let's take Zenyatta does 25 health healed per second. Lucio, just standard, like this is his passive, just standing around with his heal slider on, does 12.5 health per second to everyone around him. So let's say you get 3 teammates in that, plus the health you're healing for yourself, you're doing 48.5, so almost double Zenyatta's healing potential, sans ultimate. And then when you bump it up with his E, it goes up to 40 health per second. Now, yeah, it's a really good number. I mean, you're almost doing Mercy's single target to everyone in the area. That's why it's so substantial and why it's so important to time it. But then also let's factor in what his ult charge is. So for Lucio, as far as just talking about the heals, he does okay damage. It's 80 DPS if he lands all of his shots within a second, which isn't bad. But he actually has a pretty high charge rate. So his damage really isn't your big ult builder. It's the fact that every 20 health he heals is a percentage of his ult. So just passively standing around 3 people and constantly healing that damage, you're doing about 2% per second. And then hitting his E at the right moment and utilizing all of that on a team. So let's see, that's 6 times 42, 40 divided by 20. That would be 12% per second. So a well-timed E would be about 36% of his ult charge. So that's incredibly, incredibly strong. And as we've talked, his ulti is an overcharge. So this is different from, say, just healing. This is the fact that he literally just adds 500 health. So he adds a Reinhardt's worth of health to every single member of his team.
A really good way to put it.
Yeah, and it lasts for 5 seconds. It is important to say that the health does decrease over that time. You don't just get 500 health for 5 seconds. You get 500 health instantaneously, and then it goes down at 100 health per second. It doesn't go in like a stepwise chart where it's like, boom, 100 after a second. It goes down gradually, but that's what it evens out to. But when we're talking about 2 game modes that we have right now between payload and point cap, on point cap, it's a necessity. Like, you don't cap a point usually without your Lucio hitting his ultimate on the point. It is so essential to winning big team fights. And I mean, in my mind, it really duels Mercy as far as like which is more game breaking, because it's either I gave everyone so much health that we just didn't die, or it's Mercy, everybody died and I brought them back and then we won. So it's kind of like, in my mind, it's like version A and version B of the same thing. But it is so strong. Like, I mean, it is crazy. And then there's even an added side bonus, if you want to think about it, is the fact that if everybody dies, like let's say you're wiped and you have a Lucio, you're actually getting a speed boost to your team to get back to point faster. If my team is doing payload and we're on like that last final push, and I know we're in like the last 30 seconds, I will automatically switch to Lucio. Like I won't even like give two thoughts about it, because I know every time we die, I want to be there making sure that everybody's getting back to point just that little bit faster. And then let's see. Oh, and one other point, and I think Josh said this. He is actually a remarkable duelist. A lot of the pros, I think Jason Kaplan was talking about this when one of the really first tournaments was starting up, is that a lot of these times when you're seeing point cap or payload, when the other 5 members of his team are wiped, you'll see a Lucio running around the payload or the point just being hard to kill.
Yeah.
And the teams will have to spend like 3, 4, maybe even 5 seconds just trying to get him off the point. And when you're talking about crucial points, when you're talking about overtimes and things like that, it's not necessarily the guy out there doing the most damage or, being the most tanky. It's the guy that's out there just surviving the longest. And Lucio gives you some really scrappy potential between being able to knock people off with his right charge, which is really great for payload, mind you. If you're trying to push that final payload and someone's sticking to it and you just need that last bit of distance, I've seen a couple of really clutch Lucio plays where they just blow a guy off and win a game. Like it can be situationally so strong. And this is one of the reasons why Lucio is actually the most picked in pro play. Pros will have, usually the mix is 1 Mercy, 1 Lucio. I've seen some teams starting to dabble with 1 Lucio, 1 Symmetra, but the Lucio is the constant. Like, you don't play pro matches without Lucio.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that kind of goes over Lucio. We kind of have to speed through these a little quick. But
apologies.
No problem, Dylan. Because I wanted to save her for last because we did go over her quite a bit actually in a previous episode. If you want to go back and watch the episode we did on offensive heroes, we were at the end we talked about Farah and her dynamic with Mercy, and I think that's episode 6 if I'm not mistaken. But that
5 or no 6.
It might
right.
be 6.
No,
Yeah,
you're
so
6. It's 6.
Episode 6 we did offensive heroes, and that particular episode we did we talked about Farah and her interaction with Mercy, and so we're gonna go over Mercy now, and she's sort of the elephant in the room. In terms of professional play, and how her interaction with Farah in particular, but all these other heroes as well, is sort of the standard meta play in pro play that we've seen so far from the small sample size we had. But guys, what do you think about Mercy?
She's incredibly powerful in terms of her ult. Like, if she did nothing else but have her ult, people would still pick her, because it's just too much of a tight swinger, even more so than because a Lucio ult has some sort of outplay. You can save your burst, you can anticipate it, and in addition to the health ticking down over the duration of the ultimate. But when you get into these like nasty team fights 5v5 in the middle of the map and you take the entire enemy team down and all of a sudden Mercy hits ult and everybody comes right back up, there's no way to outplay that unless you just somehow magically out-mechanic them to like the sickest degree. You just don't outplay a situation like that mathematically, because you're not going to be healed up. You're still going to be weak from the previous fight, and all of a sudden you have all these people just jump right back into the fight and completely wipe you. Her ult is just... It's almost anti-fun, I'd say. Like, she's kind of like the Soraka plus a Tahm Kench, if we're going to compare it to League of Legends. Like, even if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. She hits her ultimate and everybody's okay again. She can rescue people.
It's Soraka Zillion.
Easily.
Yeah,
Soraka Zillion, Kale,
Yeah.
like everybody who like doesn't die.
Yeah.
I don't want to see her in competitive play. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I don't want to see Mercy.
Well, and
Just
when I
not
was first
fun.
learning how to play Mercy, and I guess I didn't read the ult carefully enough, I thought it was just a single revive for one person. And then I was
Right?
like, because I'm like, that's what made sense to me, I was like, well, of course it's just one person, and then
Otherwise
I
you'd be
made the final
broken.
team. And I was just like, oh, and so everyone probably hated me. Like, I was just like, oh, I'm sorry, guys, I can only do one. I only one at a time. But yeah, so I mean, mix that with the insane mobility. The mobility is too insane.
Yeah.
I think it's insanity, like asylum level. But and then having the heal alone is just also like the best heal in the game, right? I think it has to be, right? Because it overcharges, right?
No, doesn't
No, it
overcharge,
doesn't.
but it gets you to full.
Full, right. There isn't a game that like isn't one with a mercy, I think at some point. Especially with like defending. I think I've just seen so many game changing plays with some sort of offense like Farah, like you said, and a mercy. And it's kind of, I don't know. I think it's also maybe to do with the fact that Mercy seems to be a new like poster character for Overwatch. Like we got that Diablo promotion, so now Mercy is kind of being put at the forefront of Overwatch advertising as well. So yeah, I
Sure.
agree with Josh. I think she's too much.
Yeah, and I think even more than the heal itself and the ulti, like Alex was saying, this game's and we talked about before on all the other role discussions we were talking about, and a little bit on this one. The movement options are so important for Overwatch and sort of where what we've seen from this game so far of just like the insane amount of movement that's necessary to be effective. And her movement options are better than any other
ridiculous.
support. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous the places she can get to, the speed at which she can get there. Like it is crazy. And so like if you're 1v1ing someone and a mercy just kind of flies by and heals them up, like you can't do anything. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Dylan, what do you think?
So I know Mercy's strong. Like she is strong. Her heal is 50 health per second.
Oh
Her
my
ult
god.
charge rate is 12.5 health healed per 1%. So if you're getting off the full 50 health per second, you're actually getting 4% ult charge per second. Like just that's stupid. But there's a reason for it, and it's the fact that Mercy's damage output is bad. You're dependent on other people to do damage for you. She's the only support that I feel I'm absolutely dependent on other people, and I'm not out there doing my own thing. Like Symmetra, you're really doing your own thing because you're not even healing. Zenyatta, you're out there doing your own thing because you're the biggest DPS badass ever. And then even with Lucio, you're out there shooting your gun and having a party all the time. But with Mercy, you are like, I'm attached to you. You, Farah, Reinhardt, associated maybe Diva. We are going to go win this game together because I do nothing on my own. Which I think is like one of the things that, like, as much as all of these support heroes do a pretty good job of breaking the support stereotype of, I'm out here doing things and I'm helping and it's not just me sitting back and healing. Mercy's the only one that I don't felt completely left the nest there. Like everybody else jumped out the nest and they're off and flying, and Mercy was just like, I could, but I could sit here and just heal people. So
Sure.
I think she took a step and then just kind of took a step back. And she's still kind of in that support mindset of, oh, I'm healing. Now, given she does have the fact that she is one of the few characters in this game that buffs someone, which is also another thing I don't think we really talked about with Zenyatta, is he's actually currently the only character with a debuff, where he is stopping, or where he's essentially taking away the resistance of a champion. It depends. You can either say he's buffing his entire team or he's debuffing someone else. I tend to say it's a debuff since it's on one target.
Sure.
Whereas Mercy now has the buff that 30% additional damage to whoever's doing it. And it can be so strong because you can hit someone in like an ultimate. So you could buff a Hanzo. I'm not sure exactly how that interaction would go with his dragon since it's off for a set period of time after he's in contact with it. But certainly with a Pharaoh, which we've talked about a lot, is you sit back there, you damage amp her, and her ultimate just becomes like this raining death on people. Since it is death from above, I think is her shout for it. And then even worse is like if you can get a Bastion into a good place with a Mercy and just sit back there and like damage amp a Bastion, it's just nuts. But
So Dylan,
yeah,
would you, just to jump in there,
mhm.
would you not agree though that it's a good thing that Mercy is kind of more less offensive and more focused as to what her role is? I find that it's very clear it supports, heal and whatever. And while it's good to have it mixed up, I think it's also good to have a character that just is like, no, this is what you have to do, you don't have to juggle with the fact that you're dealing with turrets and trying to shield people over here or doing whatever. I think it's nice to have that, you want a healer, this is what you pick and this is what you do, and it's very clear, and there's no confusion to that.
I
Just kind of like a
consider it
devil's advocate.
Yeah, I kind of consider it the necessary evil because you needed a support that was very defensive. Like, it's the fact that there are so many game plans and styles that necessitate this kind of character. And the reason I call it a necessary evil is because I don't have a whole lot of fun playing Mercy. This could just be a personal thing where I'm not like, okay, this is super fun because I'm sitting back here with you and healing. It can be really exciting when you have an opposing team that has offensive heroes that are really gunning for you, and you have to be really good about using her dash to go in between your teammates. That can be super exciting and fun. But the fact of the matter is, I don't feel it's the most active play style. And I think the only person that really hurts is the person that kind of gets forced into playing her when his team says, you need to be playing Mercy, play Mercy, and, be my sidekick.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, going back to the League of Legends example, it kind of goes back to the thing of Alex Itch and Edward over Sona.
Yeah.
Yeah, for like, if anyone doesn't know, Moscow 5 and Gambit, what used to be Gambit, they had two players. That Alex Itch was the captain. They had Edward, who played support. Edward loved to play Thresh, and he loved to play Blitzcrank, and a lot of playmaking supports, and have a lot of fun. And Alex Itch said, no, you gotta play Sona, because Sona has so much utility that we can't not play with Sona. And that became kind of the running joke. But Edward played Sona, and they won a lot of games because she fit so many comps, and she fit so many. The utility of Sona was so useful that you just couldn't. She was too useful not to pick.
She was too strong at the time.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
ridiculously strong at the time. And like, sure, then it goes back to the thing too of like with Lucio, with Lucio and Symmetra and Zenyatta, like you can go through a game and have, those key moments of, yeah, I had a great ulti, I had a great duel, I bursted down this person, I killed a tank. And we've been talking about how, you can have, like, Overwatch has, you can build around these supports. Like, these supports aren't your prototypical supports. But it's kind of funny how, as prototypical support as Mercy is, she's kind of the one character that's gonna make a huge difference throughout the entire game. Like, there's no point in a game where your Mercy isn't gonna be useful.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you could have a Lucio that doesn't know how to kind of switch off or use his heal correctly, or like switch off movements, the right way.
How do I press shift?
Yeah, like
it's tricky though. It's tricky to keep track of because a lot of times, we succumb to face rolling in these fights where we're just like, shit, fuck, like we just start smashing our keyboard and hoping something good happens. Mercy is so hard to screw up though.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to screw up, but I mean, like, you have Symmetra, maybe she'll set up her turrets in the wrong place, and so she won't be as useful, kind of baiting people in there, or setting up a trap. You have Zenyatta maybe bursting the wrong target, stuff like that. Like, Mercy, her heal will always be useful. That buff will always be useful. The automatic regeneration and heal along with Lucio's ult, like, those will always be useful. They're very hard characters to mess up. But yeah, I just think, God, she's so strong. She's so strong. But let's kind of go back. We'll end it out here with as always with our final power ranking of these four heroes. Who wants to go first? Anyone want to go ahead down and throw out the gate in here?
Okay, I have two different lists. One is for team play, like competitive.
Okay.
Like team-based play, and Mercy would absolutely be first.
Sure.
Then it would go Lucio, Symmetra, and then Zenyatta.
Okay.
And then for my solo, if you're just playing by yourself, I would just switch the first two. Lucio, and then Mercy, Symmetra, and then Zenyatta. Like, Mercy, like we've discussed before, relies a lot on your damage healers to actually get out there and do damage, but she's still, like, incredibly useful without it, just because of her res and her damage boost.
Sure. I actually completely agree with Josh. I have exactly the same list he does. But yeah. Well, Dylan, Alex, what do you guys?
So, I missed. I think we have the same. Wait, do we? I just have one list, and it always encompasses like all aspects of like fun, character design, gameplay, whatever. I'm putting Lucio first, then Symmetra, then Mercy, and then Zenyatta. And Mercy's so low just because she's like boring, like to play overall. Like, yeah, fun, but like if I just want to play a game and I'm like not being try hard or whatever, like I'm just gonna pick what's fun, and Lucio is the most fun.
Sure.
So that is my number one.
Sure. Dylan, what do you think?
All right, so mine is actually it's going to be completely gameplay and effectiveness focused. I actually place the AoE nature of Lucio number one. I really think that the heal overcharge, his potential to take point A without having to need his ultimate to do it. I think his heals and his AoE healing is strong enough that he can push a point A without it. Whereas I think Mercy definitely has to have ultimate to have enough of an impact for a point A cap. I take Lucio number one, I take Mercy number two, and then Symmetra Zenyatta.
Sure.
And once again, I want to say, I don't think Symmetra and Zenyatta are bad heroes. In fact, like, if there were
They're
heroes
really good.
this effective put in other roles, they'd be like top half.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that you maybe need to think of Zenyatta as a support hero. You could take him as an offense hero. As I said, as long as you've got the Orb of Discord out there and working for you, your damage output is pretty much spot on for some other of the bigger, more offensive types out there. So if you want to shake it up and say, oh, my team already has a Lucio, go ahead, pick up that Zenyatta. You know what? The healing burden's off of you. Just go out there and do the damage.
Yeah. The only weakness, or the only really kind of two things that I really don't like about Zenyatta is I just don't like the fact that it's a stationary heal, and over time, so you really get stuck in a place where your team's coordinating towards you, and it creates a lot of chances for AoE stuff, like I said before. And like we said, the movement for him kind of makes me force him into a support role, and I think that's the big problem. Like I think
It's
that's
tricky because as Zenyatta, you want to be at the front getting off your Orb of Discords, but you're so squishy and you don't have any, like you said, ways to just quickly get out of somewhere that you're pretty much ult reliant. You're like Annie in League of Legends, and you have to have a Zhonya's because you go in, like
you
go
flash
and you get your
Tibbers
Orb
and
of
then
Discord, pretty much, and you stay there
yeah.
with your ult.
It's
what you do.
I mean, long hallway situation, he's great. Like, if you're not physically capping the point, like long hallway on payload, he's fantastic. Like, I think the long stretches on King's Row and Numbani, where you've really got some distance between you and your target, he's fantastic offensively. His main point of weakness is, as you're saying, it's like really when you get into close quarters, like point cap or end of payload, it can be pretty painful.
Sure. Yeah. Good points. But yeah, guys, we went a little over today. But that's okay. We had a great discussion about supports.
We always go over. Have we
do.
ever not been
We
over?
do. But we did go over a little bit, but it's okay. This does end
Q&A after the show again?
I actually have to leave, so sadly no. But this does conclude our month-long discussion on the Overwatch roles and all of its kind of. We went over briefly every hero. Some a little more than others. Hopefully we can do more in-depth kind of hero discussions, maybe complete episodes around heroes, maybe in the future. If you guys are interested in going that, go ahead, tweet at us and post comments, stuff like that. Please go ahead, like, favorite, subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing. It really does help us all out.
It's somewhere down there.
Yeah, and we all do take feedback. So anything you post, anything you say to us, anything like that, we do take into account, and we're trying to make this as best as we can.
Look, I have a neck.
Yeah, he has a neck today.
I have a neck.
He has a neck. If you guys aren't watching the video, we have a new design here for the stream today. Something we've kind of been tweaking with and messing with. We're gonna go ahead and improve it. It was sort of an idea that we kind of ran with a couple days ago and sort of iterated along the process. I know a lot of people had a big complaint about the overlay we had before, but yeah, overall, great show, guys. Next week we're gonna go ahead and talk about the return of the beta. It's going to be in mid-February now, if you guys haven't heard the news. So we're going to go ahead and discuss that and sort of the timing for that. We're also getting new modes and new maps a new mode and a new map and a couple of new maps for the new game for a new game type when that beta comes back. And so we'll be going ahead and talking about that. Hopefully we get some news so we can go ahead and discuss it. If not, we'll go ahead and with some speculation and some stuff that we want to see as a game mode, and hopefully they put it in there. But yeah, guys, we'll sit back, relax, and go ahead, check out the VODs. Again, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.